The elevator doors burst open and a tall man in a black suit strode out, moving so fast the assistants near the corridor scattered aside. "Where is she?" he demanded. His voice was sharp enough to silence the entire floor. Inside the conference room, executives from 3 different companies sat around a glass table, whispering nervously. Ji-hoon Park, the billionaire owner of Park Global Holdings, had never arrived late to a meeting in his life. Yet now he walked in like a storm. Amara Johnson looked up from her translation notes, confused. She had only been working at the company for 6 months. Her job was simple: translate conversations between international partners and Korean executives. She kept her head down, stayed invisible. But suddenly Ji-hoon stopped in front of her chair. Everyone in the room froze. His dark eyes locked onto hers. "Stand up," he said quietly. Amara blinked. "Sir?" He didn't repeat himself. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Before anyone could understand what was happening, he opened it. A diamond ring sparkled under the conference lights. Then he took her hand. "Wear my ring," he said calmly. "Pretend we're engaged." The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Amara's heart pounded in her chest. "What?" Ji-hoon leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. "Just play along." "Play along with what?" she whispered back. "With this." Before she could react, he slipped the ring onto her finger and wrapped an arm around her waist. Then he turned toward the stunned executives. "I apologize for being late," he said coolly. "I was proposing to my fiancé." Silence exploded across the table. One of the older investors stood abruptly. "Fiancé? You're engaged." Ji-hoon gave a calm nod. "Yes." Amara could barely breathe. The man studying her narrowed his eyes. "This is unexpected, Mr. Park. Especially considering the marriage arrangement our families have been discussing." Amara finally understood. There had been rumors in the company. Powerful business families wanted Ji-hoon to marry their daughters. It would strengthen alliances worth billions. Ji-hoon's voice stayed calm. "I have already chosen the woman I intend to marry." The man's gaze shifted toward Amara, clearly unimpressed. "This woman is your translator." Amara felt heat rising in her face. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. "She's much more than that." Then he turned and looked directly at her. The intensity in his eyes made her pulse race. "Isn't that right?" Amara realized every person in the room was staring at her, waiting, judging. If she ruined this moment, she might lose her job, or worse. So she forced a small smile. "Yes," she said softly. The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances. Ji-hoon's arm tightened slightly around her waist. "Good," he said. Then he looked back at the table. "Now that we've cleared that up, shall we begin the meeting?" For the next hour, Amara sat beside him in complete disbelief while translating the negotiations. The ring on her finger felt heavier with every passing minute. Finally, the meeting ended. Chairs scraped the floor as the executives left. When the last person exited the room, Amara turned to him. "What was that?" Ji-hoon removed his arm and adjusted his cufflinks calmly. "A situation that required a solution." "You used me as the solution?" "You were the closest option." Her mouth dropped open. "That's not a normal explanation." He looked at the ring. "Take it off." She quickly removed it and placed it on the table. Ji-hoon slid the velvet box toward her instead. "Keep it." Amara stared at him like he had lost his mind. "I'm not keeping a ring that costs more than my entire salary." "It's necessary." "For what?" "For the next few weeks." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me." Ji-hoon leaned back in his chair. "The people in that room will investigate the engagement immediately. And if they discover it's fake, things will become complicated. So you want me to continue pretending?" "Yes." Amara laughed in disbelief. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious." "This isn't a movie, Mr. Park." "No," he said calmly. "It's business." She folded her arms. "I'm not pretending to be your fiancé. I'll triple your salary." She hesitated, then shook her head again. "That's not the point." I'll guarantee your position at this company for the next 5 years. She looked at him suspiciously. You're bribing me. I'm compensating you. For lying to powerful businessmen? For helping me avoid a forced marriage. Her expression softened slightly. A forced marriage? Ji-hoon exhaled slowly. My shareholders want me to marry the daughter of a rival conglomerate. And you don't want to? No. So instead you announced you're engaged to your translator. Yes. Amara rubbed her forehead. This is insane. Perhaps, he said calmly. But it will only last a few weeks. And what happens after that? They will lose interest. She looked at the diamond ring again. You really expect me to wear this and pretend we're engaged in public? Yes. Amara sighed deeply. This could ruin my life. Ji-hoon studied her carefully. No, he said quietly. It could change it. She narrowed her eyes. That sounded like a threat. It wasn't. Then what was it? A prediction. Amara leaned against the table, thinking. Finally she said, I have conditions. Ji-hoon raised an eyebrow. Go on. No touching in public unless absolutely necessary. Understood. No lying to me about anything. Agreed. And if things get dangerous, I'm out. He nodded once. Fair. Amara looked at the ring again. Then she slowly slipped it back onto her finger. Fine, she said. For a few weeks, I'll pretend to be your fiancé. Ji-hoon stood. Good. As he walked toward the door, she called after him. One more question. He stopped. Why me? For a moment he didn't answer. Then he said quietly, because you're the only person in this building who doesn't want something from me. Amara frowned. That's not true. Oh. She raised her hand and pointed to the ring. I want to give this back as soon as possible. For the first time since she met him, Ji-hoon smiled slightly. We'll see. Neither of them realized that the lie they had just created was already spreading through Seoul's most powerful circles. And the people who wanted Ji-hoon married into their families were not the type to accept rejection quietly. The fake engagement had only just begun. And it was about to pull Amara into a world far more dangerous than corporate politics. The next morning, Amara almost convinced herself the entire thing had been a strange dream. Until she walked into Park Global's headquarters and every employee on the lobby floor turned to stare at her hand. The diamond ring glittered like a spotlight. Her friend Hannah from accounting rushed over immediately. Amara, she whispered loudly. Tell me that rumor is fake. Amara blinked. What rumor? Hannah grabbed her wrist and lifted her hand. That rumor. Amara sighed. It's complicated. Hannah's mouth dropped open. You're engaged to the CEO. Lower your voice, Amara hissed. You're engaged to the CEO. Hannah repeated, even louder. Several people nearby started whispering. Amara quickly pulled her hand back. It's not what it looks like. Oh, really? Hannah said. Because it looks like the most powerful man in this building proposed to you. Before Amara could respond, the elevator doors opened behind them. And Ji-hoon stepped out. The lobby instantly went silent. He walked toward them with the same calm confidence as yesterday, but this time his gaze went directly to Amara. Hannah leaned closer. He's coming here. I can see that. Ji-hoon stopped in front of her. Good morning. His voice sounded casual. Amara nodded awkwardly. Morning. The employees around them were practically holding their breath. Ji-hoon glanced at her hand. You're wearing the ring. You said it was necessary. Good. Then, without warning, he gently took her hand. A ripple of shocked whispers spread through the lobby. Amara's heart started racing again. Mr. Park, she muttered under her breath, people are staring. That's the point. He turned toward the employees. I'd like to make something clear, he said calmly. The entire lobby froze. Miss Amara Johnson is not only my translator. She is also my fiancé. A wave of gasps spread through the crowd. Hannah nearly fainted beside her. Ji-hoon squeezed Amara's hand once before releasing it. Please treat her with the same respect you show me. Then he turned and walked toward the elevators, like he had just announced the weather. Amara stood there in stunned silence. Hannah grabbed her shoulders. What is happening? Amara groaned. I told you, it's complicated. Before Hannah could interrogate her further, Amara's phone vibrated. A message from Ji-hoon appeared. Come to my office. Now. Hannah peeked at the screen. He's summoning you already? Amara sighed. This is going to be a long day. 10 minutes later, she stepped into Ji-hoon's massive office on the top floor. He stood near the window overlooking the city. You caused a scene downstairs, she said. You helped. You didn't warn me. If I had, your reaction wouldn't look authentic. Amara crossed her arms. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He turned toward her. No. Then why are you smiling? His expression quickly returned to neutral. I'm not. She pointed at him. You just did it again. Ji-hoon ignored the comment and walked toward his desk. There's a gala tonight. Amara froze. A what? A corporate charity gala. I'm not going. Yes, you are. Why? Because my fiancé is expected to attend. Amara stared at him. I agreed to pretend we're engaged for a few weeks. I didn't agree to become your public decoration. It's not decoration, he said calmly. It's strategy. She rubbed her temples. Why does this strategy involve me wearing expensive dresses and smiling at rich strangers? Because those rich strangers are the ones trying to control my life. And I'm the shield? Yes. Amara dropped into the chair across from his desk. You're unbelievable. Ji-hoon studied her quietly. You can still back out. Amara looked up. Really? Yes. She pointed at the window overlooking the massive city. And faced the embarrassment of the entire company finding out the CEO's engagement was fake? He didn't answer. Exactly, she said. I'm trapped now. Not trapped. Involved. That's the same thing. Ji-hoon walked back toward the window. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I appreciate your help. Amara raised an eyebrow. Was that gratitude? Yes. Wow, she said. Mark the calendar. Ji-hoon ignored the sarcasm. You'll need a dress for tonight. I have dresses. Not for this event. And how would you know? Because the guest list includes half of Seoul's wealthiest families. So their daughters will arrive wearing designer gowns worth more than most cars. Amara shrugged. Then they'll be very uncomfortable when they see me outshine them. Ji-hoon turned slowly. You're confident. I'm realistic. For a moment, the corner of his mouth lifted again. You're interesting. Amara pointed at him again. There it is. What? That smile. Ji-hoon looked away. You're imagining things. Before she could tease him further, the office door suddenly burst open. A tall man in a dark suit stepped inside. His expression was serious. Sir, he said quickly, we have a problem. Ji-hoon's posture changed instantly. What kind of problem? The Choi family. Amara noticed the tension in the room immediately. Ji-hoon's voice hardened. What about them? They just announced that their daughter will attend tonight's gala. Amara frowned. And that's bad? The man looked at her briefly before answering. She's the woman Mr. Park was supposed to marry. Silence filled the office. Amara slowly turned toward Ji-hoon. So your almost bride is coming tonight? Yes. And she's going to see the woman you chose instead? Yes. Amara leaned back in her chair. Well, she said, this should be fun. Ji-hoon stared at her. You think this is amusing? A little. Why? Because, Amara said calmly, I have a feeling she's not the type to accept rejection quietly. The man in the suit spoke again. She's not. Ji-hoon's gaze returned to the city outside the window. Then tonight will be interesting. Amara stood up. Don't worry. He looked at her. Why not? She lifted her hand and let the diamond ring sparkle under the office lights. Because if she wants a fight. Her smile turned sharp. She picked the wrong woman. Neither of them realized that the gala tonight wouldn't just bring jealousy and gossip. It would bring enemies much more dangerous than a rejected bride. And before the night ended, Amara would discover that Ji-hoon Park's world was far darker than she ever imagined. The ballroom doors opened, and a wave of conversation swept through the grand hall as guests in elegant gowns and tailored suits filled the space with quiet prestige. Amara paused just inside the entrance, adjusting the sleeve of the dark emerald dress Ji-hoon's assistant had insisted she wear. The fabric hugged her frame perfectly, and the diamond ring on her finger shimmered under the chandeliers. Ji-hoon stood beside her, calm as ever. "You look nervous," he said under his breath. "I'm not nervous," she replied quickly. "You just stopped walking." "That's because half the people in this room are staring at us." Ji-hoon followed her gaze. "They're staring at you. That's not comforting." He stepped slightly closer, lowering his voice. "Remember what we agreed. Pretend we're engaged." "Yes." Amara exhaled slowly. "Right." As they moved deeper into the ballroom, whispers trailed behind them. "That's her. The translator? I heard he proposed in the boardroom." "Unbelievable." Amara kept her head high, though inside her nerves were buzzing. She had never imagined standing in a room like this beside one of the most powerful men in Seoul. A waiter passed with glasses of champagne. Ji-hoon picked one up and handed it to her. "You're doing fine," he said quietly. "Define fine. You haven't run away yet." She gave him a quick look. "Very funny." Suddenly, the crowd shifted. The murmuring grew louder. Amara noticed several guests turning toward the entrance. Ji-hoon's expression changed slightly. "She's here," he said. Amara followed his gaze. A woman in a silver gown had just entered the ballroom. She moved with elegant confidence, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders. People stepped aside as she walked. "Let me guess," Amara murmured. "Choi Mina. So that's the almost wife." "Yes." Mina's eyes scanned the room until they landed on Ji-hoon. Then they shifted to Amara. And to the ring on her finger. The air between them seemed to tighten. "Well," Amara whispered, "this is awkward." Mina walked directly toward them. Each step felt deliberate. When she finally stopped in front of them, her smile was polite but cold. "Ji-hoon," she said smoothly. "Mina." Her eyes moved to Amara again. "And this must be the famous fiancé everyone's talking about." Amara forced a calm smile. "Amara Johnson." Mina looked at her hand. "That ring is beautiful." "Thank you." "Ji-hoon has expensive taste." Ji-hoon's voice cut in. "What do you want, Mina?" Mina shrugged lightly. "Can't I congratulate my old friend? We were never friends." "Still," she said, glancing between them, "an engagement is big news." She stepped a little closer to Amara. "Tell me," Mina said softly, "how long have you two been together?" Amara met her gaze without flinching. "Long enough." Ji-hoon glanced at her briefly. Mina tilted her head. "That's interesting." "Because Ji-hoon and I were discussing marriage only 2 weeks ago." Amara smiled calmly. "Things change." Mina's eyes hardened slightly. "Yes, apparently they do." The tension between them grew thick. Finally, Mina gave a small laugh. "Well, congratulations," she said. Then she leaned closer to Amara. "Just be careful," she whispered. "Why?" "Because Ji-hoon's world isn't safe for people like you." Amara raised an eyebrow. "People like me?" Mina's smile returned. "Inexperienced." Before Amara could respond, Mina turned and walked away into the crowd. Amara let out a breath. "That woman is terrifying." Ji-hoon nodded slightly. "She's also dangerous." "How dangerous?" "She comes from one of the most powerful families in the country. And she just got humiliated in front of everyone tonight." Ji-hoon studied the room quietly. "Yes." Amara took a sip of champagne. "Fantastic." For the next hour, they mingled with guests, accepting congratulations and polite curiosity. Amara quickly realized something surprising. Many of the people in the room weren't just wealthy. They were afraid of Ji-hoon. Men twice his age spoke to him carefully. Others avoided him completely. At one point, she leaned closer and whispered, "Why does everyone look like they're scared of you?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he said quietly, "Because they should be." Before she could ask what that meant, a man in a dark suit approached quickly. He looked like one of Ji-hoon's security staff. "Sir," he said under his breath. Ji-hoon turned slightly. What is it? There's someone outside asking for you. Who? The man hesitated. He didn't give a name. Ji-hoon's expression darkened. Where? Private balcony. Ji-hoon nodded once. Stay here, he told Amara. Wait, what's going on? Just stay here. He handed his champagne glass to a passing waiter and walked toward the side corridor with the guard. Amara watched him disappear. Something about the tension in his shoulders made her uneasy. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. She was just considering going to find him when Mina suddenly appeared again. You look bored, Mina said. I'm fine. Did Ji-hoon leave you alone already? He'll be back. Mina sipped her drink. Probably dealing with business. What kind of business? The kind that doesn't happen in boardrooms. Amara narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? Mina smiled slightly. You really don't know anything about him, do you? About what? Mina leaned closer. The rumors. What rumors? That Ji-hoon Park isn't just a billionaire CEO. Amara felt a small chill. What else would he be? Mina's voice dropped. Someone who controls far more than companies. Before Amara could respond, a loud crash echoed from the direction of the balcony corridor. Guests turned in alarm. Another sound followed. A shout. Then 2 men in suits rushed past the ballroom doors. Amara's heart jumped. Something was wrong. Without thinking, she set her glass down and hurried toward the corridor. Amara, Mina called after her. But she kept moving. As she reached the balcony doors, she heard voices arguing outside. One of them was Ji-hoon's. She pushed the door open and froze. Ji-hoon stood near the railing, his expression cold. 2 men in dark jackets lay on the ground behind him, clearly unconscious. Another man stood across from him, holding a gun. Amara's breath caught. The man with the gun smirked. Well, he said, looks like the famous fiancé decided to join us. Ji-hoon's voice turned sharp. Amara, go back inside. But the man lifted the gun slightly. I wouldn't do that, he said. The night air suddenly felt deadly quiet. And in that moment, Amara realized Mina had been telling the truth. Ji-hoon's world was far more dangerous than she had imagined. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs as the cold night air swept across the balcony. The man holding the gun didn't look nervous. He looked entertained. Well, he said slowly, glancing between them, this is interesting. The famous Ji-hoon Park and his new fiancé. Ji-hoon's voice came out calm but sharp. Amara, go inside. She didn't move. Her eyes flicked to the 2 men on the ground behind him. You knocked them out, she whispered. The man with the gun chuckled. Oh, he did more than that. Ji-hoon's gaze never left the gun. Last warning, he said quietly. Put it down. The man smirked. You always were arrogant. Amara's mind raced. What's going on? She asked. Business, the man replied. Ji-hoon's voice hardened. Leave her out of it. Too late for that. The man pointed the gun slightly toward Amara. Word travels fast, he continued. Everyone in the city is talking about your sudden engagement. Ji-hoon didn't respond. The man tilted his head. So tell me, is she really your fiancé? Silence stretched between them. Amara realized the man was watching their reactions carefully, testing them. Ji-hoon finally spoke. Yes. The man laughed. You expect me to believe that? Ji-hoon took a slow step forward. The gun lifted instantly. Don't, the man warned. Amara suddenly stepped closer to Ji-hoon. His hand moved slightly as if to stop her. But she slipped her arm around his. The man's eyes narrowed. Well, look at that. Amara lifted her left hand so the diamond ring caught the moonlight. You heard him, she said firmly. We're engaged. Ji-hoon turned his head slightly toward her. His voice dropped to a whisper. You shouldn't be here. Too late, she whispered back. The man watched them with growing amusement. Interesting, he said. Very interesting. Who are you? Amara asked. The man ignored her and looked back at Ji-hoon. You know why I'm here. Ji-hoon's expression turned icy. You're trespassing. I'm delivering a message. Amara swallowed. What kind of message? The man's eyes flicked toward her. The kind that usually gets delivered without witnesses. Ji-hoon's voice became deadly quiet. Say it and leave. The man smiled slowly. My boss wants you to remember something. And what's that? That you don't control everything in this city. Ji-hoon didn't respond. The man continued. You've taken too much territory. Amara frowned. Territory? The man glanced at her again. Oh, he really didn't tell you, did he? Ji-hoon's voice snapped like steel. Enough. But the man seemed delighted now. You're standing next to one of the most powerful crime bosses in Seoul, he told Amara. Her stomach dropped. Crime boss. Ji-hoon stepped forward again. The gun lifted higher. I warned you, the man said. Ji-hoon's voice stayed calm. You're in my city. The man laughed again. Not for long. Then suddenly the balcony door burst open behind them. 4 of Ji-hoon's security guards rushed out. The man with the gun cursed under his breath. Seems like our conversation is over. Before anyone could react, he backed toward the railing. You should keep a closer eye on your fiancé, he told Ji-hoon. Then he climbed onto the railing and jumped. Amara gasped. She rushed to the edge. Below them, a motorcycle roared to life in the alley. The man landed behind the driver and sped away into the night. The guards rushed to the railing. Sir, should we? No, Ji-hoon interrupted. They all turned toward him. He stood completely still. Let him go. The guards hesitated but nodded. Yes, sir. Amara slowly stepped back from the railing. Her hands were shaking now. You're a crime boss? Ji-hoon looked at her. I control certain operations. That's not an answer. It's the truth. She stared at him. So all those rumors are exaggerated. Someone just pointed a gun at you. And he left without firing. That doesn't make it better. Ji-hoon rubbed the back of his neck briefly. You weren't supposed to see that. Well, I did. Silence hung between them. Then she said quietly, you lied to me. I didn't lie. You just forgot to mention the whole Mafia thing? He looked at her seriously. If I had told you the truth, you wouldn't have agreed to help. That's because I'm not insane. Her voice had risen louder than she expected. Inside the ballroom, the music still played, completely unaware of what had just happened outside. Ji-hoon stepped closer. You should leave the gala. I should leave this entire situation. I understand. Amara crossed her arms tightly. No, I don't think you do. Ji-hoon looked at her carefully. Then explain it to me. I signed up to pretend to be engaged to a billionaire CEO, she said. Not a man with enemies carrying guns. They won't come after you. They already did. They didn't know who you were. They do now. Ji-hoon didn't argue with that. The guards quietly dragged the unconscious men off the balcony. Amara watched them disappear. Then she looked back at Ji-hoon. You said if things got dangerous, I could walk away. Yes. So this is me walking away. Ji-hoon was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. All right. The answer surprised her. That's it. You want out, he said calmly. You're out. She blinked. No arguments? No. Something about that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. She slipped the ring off her finger and held it out. I guess this belongs to you. Ji-hoon looked at the diamond. Then back at her. You can keep it. I don't want it. It will make the story more believable if people see you wearing it tomorrow. Tomorrow, she repeated. Yes. Amara frowned. I just said I'm done pretending. I know. Then why would I wear it tomorrow? Ji-hoon met her eyes. Because the man who pointed that gun tonight won't believe the engagement is over. A cold realization settled over her. What are you saying? I'm saying you may already be part of this whether you like it or not. Her stomach sank. So if I walk away, they may still come after you. Amara stared at him. That's not fair. No, Ji-hoon admitted quietly. It isn't. The music from the ballroom drifted through the open doors again. Guests were laughing, dancing, completely unaware of the danger outside. Amara slowly looked down at the ring in her hand, then back at Ji-hoon. So what happens now? Ji-hoon's voice was calm again. Now we make sure no one ever tries to threaten you again. And how exactly do you plan to do that? His expression hardened. By reminding them who they're dealing with. Amara slipped the ring back onto her finger slowly. She wasn't sure if she was protecting herself or stepping deeper into a world she didn't understand. But one thing was certain now. This fake engagement had just turned into something much more dangerous. And walking away was no longer as simple as she had hoped. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have walked away or stayed beside Ji-hoon? Because for Amara, the real story was only just beginning.